look at the big air. Oh, that's Josh running wide. Look how close they are. And away they go. The two Subarus get away fairly evenly. Kieran tries to go in wide. Oh, Tom's hit Kieran. But Josh goes back on the inside. Gary goes wide. Mike goes up the inside of Gary. Oh, there's a bit of a tap there. Oh, there's Craig has pushed Sam into the wall. Josh Hardy wins his second ever win and the second win of the day. Chris doing more rallycross in the BMW than actual touring car racing, and it's the first win for Mark Nicol in the Renault Megane. Joe's definitely going to get it. A fantastic win for Heafy on his debut event, his first ever win in the Nissan GTR, unless Kieran can make a last minute dive. And he does, and Mark Nicol is 6th, which means he's the independent champion for season 2. Craig Keller in the Nissan GTR is going to be a win for Craig. Craig Keller is going to take the win in this race. Craig Keller is your season 2 FWTC champion. The randomly drawn reverse grid number was done for the second time this season, and number 9 was drawn for Fuji, which promoted Joe Burrows to the front of the grid in his Hyundai Genesis for HB Motorsports. Second to him was Gary Black in his Renault Megane, and in row 2 we've got Harry Cook in the DC Motorsports BMW M4 and Josh Hardy in his Renault Megane. Row 3 we've got the other HB Motorsports Hyundai of Stephen Heath and Connor Hewlett in his Subaru WRX. Row 4 we've got the two Elliott Racing Nissan GTRs of Rob Pellet and Craig Kellett, and row 5 we've got Mike Kuipers in his K&N Racing Nissan GTR and Joe McCall in the BMW M4. Row 6 is Mark Nicol in the other K&N Racing Nissan GTR, Tom Wright in the Renault Megane. In row 7 we've got the two K-Tech Racing Ford Mustangs, and of course at the back row of the grid we've got Callum Baker in his Subaru WRX and DC Motorsports BMW M4 of Darren Parker. Okay, the final race of the day here at Fuji for round 2. The sun is setting and the grid has been set with Joe and Gary on the front, and away they go. It all looks fairly even. The two Nissans are together. Of course they get a good start normally. As you come down into the first bend, oh, there's a bit of contact there. That is Rob. Rob has gone wide after contact. Oh, contact as well with Callum and Darren at the back. So further up then, Josh is leading this race, and it's all quite bunched up so far. There is Joe after being on pole position. He's dropped out a little bit. We go on board with Harry. So Connor is fighting more mid-pack, but he's doing okay so far. And that's someone running very wide, and that is Mark Nicol nearly losing it. Oh, there's contact there with Gary. Gary goes off. He does a bit of rallycross. So, and it's a little bit messier for race 3. Of course, it's a reverse grid, so it's mixed up the winners to put the mid-pack. So, of course, it's going to be a little bit different. We can have a little look at that incident between Mark and Gary again, as it could have turned out a lot worse, but luckily they got away with it. On board with Gary then with this incident. I think Tom hits Mark, someone hits Gary, and then there's a bit of contact. There's the contact again, and Gary's on the grass in the end. On board with Mark. Yeah, I think he's got that. So it's pushed wide from Tom Wright. Yeah, very interesting. On board with Joe, who's behind Tom here. Tom just overdoes, catches the grass, hits both Mark and Gary. Then Mark will come back on in a second. There he is, and that's where the rallycross happens. on board with Mike then, the winner of races 1 and 2. Currently in 6th position, just behind Harry. And the two Hyundais are in 3rd and 4th. Were 3rd and 4th, sorry. But it's still very, very good for the teams. On board with Craig, who is putting Josh under pressure here. Josh has got a bit of a gap. And as you can see, it's a completely different Josh to the first race, where he really was a bit foot heavy, let's say, spinning the rear tyres out. Now he's settled himself down and much smoother. But Craig is right on the back end of Josh here. But Heathy is looking very quick behind these two as well. So Heathy has got some great potential here to catch these two up and make a fight three-way for the lead. Further down then, as we go through, Harry is in a very strong 4th position, just ahead of Mike. Joe Burrows drops down to 6th after the first couple of laps, with Connor up to 7th now. Rob unfortunately drops down to 8th after the first corner incident, and then Gary and Joe having a battle here. These two are fighting it out in race 2 as well, so good to see Joe involved. So further down, we've got Tom Wright racing with Darren Parker on the hard tyres, and Mark was also on the hard tyres at the back. And there's Callum racing with Tom and Kieran, and a lot of thinking to do for both K-Tech and Darren for DC on the hard tyres, on how they can minimise the damage come the next few rounds. So it looks like Craig has taken the lead of this race, and Josh is now under threat by Mike. So there's some real progression in this race in the space of 1 lap whilst we look further down the field. So Craig is leading on the medium tyres, which is a very, very good achievement to be doing so far. And Josh just loses second to Mike there after getting his back end out. And the mid pack here is really pushing on, catching up with Josh as well. A 2 Hyundai Genesis still doing really well. Oh, contact. That was a real dive there from Joe. Gets away with it. A little bit of contact with Harry. Harry continues on with Rob behind him. Whoa, contact with Harry. So go on board with Connor. Running really, really wide, going for a different line, so he's going to get some real good exit speed, and he does. Look at that. That didn't quite work out for him. Slides in behind Joe, and the other Joe is fighting here with Gary again. These two are stuck together like a magnet at the moment. There's Tom, who's now ahead of Mark. Darren is down in 13th. Whoa, nearly sideways for Tom, and Tom drops down to the back of the grid behind Callum. So Mike Kuipers is now leading this race. Literally in the space of another lap that we keep an eye on the other guys, and Mike is progressing forwards and leading the race for the third time today. This will be maximum points for Mike if he gets this and the fastest lap, which has never been heard of. Heathy is still comfortably ahead of Rob, Harry, with Connor now ahead of Joe in 7th and 8th. And then Joe McCall still ahead of Gary, and again Gary right on the back end of Joe. So yet again we come to this straight down to the start finish line, and Joe and Gary are right next to each other. Here comes Gary, he's got the slipstream. So Tom has made some good progress so far in this race 3, and he seems to have gapped himself from the back group, so if he keeps his head down he can catch up with Joe and Gary and maybe Mark, and sorry, it's Joe and Gary, and get some more points. So Mike's still leading, Craig is second still, and Joe's third, Josh is third, sorry. So this has stabilised itself. On board with Harry, who's having a real tussle with Heathy. Heathy's really dropped off now, so Heathy was in 4th. Rob's got ahead, Harry's got ahead, and Connor Hewlett is not too far behind as well. So this mid-pack race is hotting up as well. I did wonder if Fitzy, which is Connor, was on his way to running off the track. He was super late on the brakes, and so that Connor went wild off that first corner. So let's have a little look at the replay and find out what actually happened to Connor on that first corner. So let's watch Connor again as he comes down to the first hairpin. Look, he's just realised, goes straight over the grass and into the barrier. On board with Connor. And it's the barrier. On board with Rob, as you'll see Connor go straight in front of him in a second. There he goes. So that means and allows Tom Wright to catch up with Connor, and there's another opportunity here for Tom to get some more points. This will be his best result so far if he continues. So Harry still behind Heathy here. Heathy's just got a bit ahead, and no doubt wanting to catch up with Rob again. So Stephen must have made a mistake somewhere down the line. As I said before, this is good for the HB Motorsports Hyundais. The they're consistently running mid-pack all throughout, whereas the others are either up the top or at the back. So HB just bagging the points is really going to help. Staying out of trouble more than anything. Josh in third still, and it looks like he's actually dropping off the back of Craig, who isn't too far away from Mike, but it's going to prove very, very difficult for him on those medium tyres. Let's watch Tom on the back of Connor now then, see if he can take advantage. Whoa! Side by side, and he's got him. Tom Wright goes ahead of Connor, and of course this is quite important for the independence race. It's obviously very early days, but with only 4 or 5 of them in it full time, then it's a race for those guys for the overall title. Currently Gary leading, Connor is at second and doing pretty well. Tom Wright's got a bit of catching up, but no doubt he will start gaining more spaces later in the season. So Joe and Gary still together. Look how close they are. So the two Hyundais sandwiching the BMW of Harry Cook. Joe gets on the inside of Gary and looks like he's got past him. The sun is still setting and proving it a little bit difficult for some of the guys as they're coming around particular corners. And this looks like, yep, that is Josh, who has dropped behind Rob Pellet, who goes a bit wide there. So a fight is on between Josh and Rob. So Josh must have made a mistake somewhere down the line, or Rob has just very quickly caught up. And Rob, this is one of the best performances from Rob Pellet. Is proving to be very, very quick around this circuit. And this will really boost his confidence for the rest of the season. Although he will have to deal with the tyre ballast come round 3 if he is in the top 6, which no doubt he will be with the results he's got so far. So Craig is still in second, but Mike is leading by a bare distance. This race 3, Mike is so much more comfortable, and he's not got the other two Elite Racing Nissans on his back after the reverse grid. Mike has just been much more successful in getting through the pack, and to say that Mike has dominated at this race, very, very easy to see, and no doubt a title contender in that Nissan. But the tyre ballast will play its game, and Mike will have to deal with the hard tyres come Lago Maggiore for round 3. So it's settled up the front, but the two Hyundais still holding the BMW of Harry Cook hostage in the middle. And that's a good move from Joe. Bit of a push through that chicane, and it's tight. So, and look at that. Joe's dropped off the back of Gary, and Gary then is really pushing on the back end of Joe Burrows now, who is struggling to get past Harry. Another good move from Joe, and he's getting up on the inside of him as he's getting into the corner, mid-corner, but the exit speed of the BMW is just too much for Joe to complete the move. So looking a little frustrated at the moment. Gary makes the move on Joe on the inside. Oh! On board with Harry. Whoa, Gary's got past as well. Oh, contact Harry and Gary. Gary goes very, very wide. So Joe on the back of Harry now. 2 BMWs, 1 Renault and 1 Hyundai. All together for the last few laps. So Tom is still ahead of Connor, but Connor's not fallen too far back, so Connor's still a threat to Tom here. So Gary still on the back end of Joe, pushing for 6th, and set it round 1. And I'll say it again, but Gary really in the thick of it, and I think it's a good move to come away from the Lexus. He really struggled with it, and I think he struggled to really want to race with it after the performance was just not on par. However, he did get a better setup come the late end of the season and actually proved to be very quick. And he actually got a podium out of it, so he got there, but ultimately decided to switch to the Renault. That's Heathy running, Joe running wide, and Harry gets past. So Joe drops 2 spaces behind Harry and Gary. Josh is now behind Heathy, so Josh has dropped another space. So Josh must be having a nightmare and having some issues. But our leader for every race, the qualifying and the fastest laps, has been this man all throughout the entirety of the practice sessions and through the races. Mike Kuipers in the Nissan GTR has proved something to Season 2 winner Craig Kellett, who dominated last season, that he is going to take the fight and is a title contender. Mike Kuipers takes race number 3, does the triple of the day, and Craig Kellett and Rob Pellet together take another double podium for Elliott Racing. So a big statement for the teams, and look how close this is for Heathy and Josh. Who's going to take it? Oh, that's so close. Josh gets it. Gary takes 6th. Joe takes 7th. Joe takes 8th. Tom Wright takes 9th. Carter takes 11th. Where is Harry Cook? Harry Cook is nowhere to... There he is. Mark Nichol takes 11th. So Harry Cook takes 12th. We'll have a look at what happened to Harry. No doubt he's spun off somewhere. Darren's going to take 13th. Just ahead of the 2 Mustangs in 13th, 14th. Callum takes 16th. Let's watch what happens with Harry. He's got Gary in front of him. Oh, so unfortunately it was Joe who went into the corner and just pushed him out, spun him out completely. On board with Harry. Yeah, there's the contact. On board with Joe. And he's just outbraked himself. Yeah, interesting. Almost went directly into him. I mean, he did slow down here, but it was all too little too late. On board with Joe, who was behind Joe. Yeah, I don't think there's any denying about that as the fault of Joe, unfortunately. Mike takes a dominant 3rd win of the day then, just ahead of Craig and Rob, who have smashed it for the Elliott Racing in the overall standings. Josh finishes literally just ahead of Stephen. Gary 6th, the two Joes 7th and 8th, Tom Wright in 9th, Connor in 10th, Mark is in 11th, Harry is 12th, with Darren, Kieran, Tom and Callum finishing at the back. And no doubt that Joe Burrows will be reviewed with his incident on Harry. In the overall title then, for the standings, without a shadow of a doubt, Mike Kuipers is leading with 94 points and is actually 17 points ahead of Craig Kellett in second. In third we have Rob, his teammate, again on 70. In fourth is Mark, so Mark has dropped down from leading into this race. In fifth we've got Stephen, sixth is Gary, and then of course Darren is in seventh. So a big drop for Darren out of second, who struggled massively on those hard tyres. Obviously more significantly, Kieran and Tom had very poor results. That drops them down to 10th and 14th, significantly. Josh jumps up to 13th after a good result ahead of Tom as well, and the rest obviously follow on. In the teams, Elite Racing are leading now with 170, K&N 166, only 4 points behind. And then HB Motorsports jumped up to third with 127 after the poor results of DC and K-Tech, who are only 4 points beside each other, with K-Tech at the back of that pack. In the independents, Gary is still leading by only 2 points now ahead of Connor, after Connor gets a fantastic set of results here at Fuji. Josh jumps up to third, 1 point ahead of Tom. The two, a little bit of work to do to catch up to the front two. Callum gets a few points, so is in fifth with 30, just behind Joe for his first debut event, who is in fourth with 43 points. Thank you very much for joining us here at Fuji. We will see you again for round 3 at Lago Maggiore, where we will continue with the minis as well there. We'll see you soon.